we start laughing. We'll fix that bug. So 3 parts, we'll have a break somewhere in here. Okay, so here's our little app that we're gonna work with first. There are 3 components, parent, child, grandchild, that, like as you kind of expect, parent renders child, child renders grandchild, as one might think. And we're going to explore the life cycle of our application. I like to nod back there. Oh yeah. So, mounting is equivalent to birth. Updating is a component living its best life. And unmounting is the equivalent of death. So, some of these guys we've already seen and are already familiar with, some less so. So for instance, constructor, we've already seen, familiar with. It's just creating an instance of that. Render, we also are super familiar with. It's just showing up to the screen. Last in its birth process is this component did mount. One thing to pay attention to with these lifecycle methods is that verbiage. Did versus will matter. They chose them for reasons. And you'll also notice that it says here show less common lifecycle methods. There are a whole bunch more. But what they found was that these 3 were the essential ones, in addition to what we've already seen. So we're only going to explore these 3 today, and I believe they're also planning to actively deprecate some of the other lifecycle methods. They just haven't yet. All right, let's look at the code. So we have got, whoa, is this my Git lens? It's totally my Git lens. There we go. No, I want Git lens away. Thank you. Do you guys know about Git lens? Git lens is an extension that I love, particularly for working with other folks, because on any given line, it'll show you who committed, how long ago, and what the message was. So if there's ever something funny that you're like, I don't know who wrote this, I don't know what it's supposed to be doing, and I'm totally gonna break it, and be like, hey, coworker, your commit message was trash. Like, what is this about? Help me build out this new feature. As an aside, VS Code extensions that I adore. So we have got lifecycle app, which just renders the parent, which renders the button, the word, and the child, and then grandchild, which renders just its word. So, where do I want to start? I want to start at constructor. Let's go through the ones. We can also turn off that light if it's helpful. In the back. Student preference. I'm cool up here regardless. Cool, okay. So we're gonna start with the ones that we've already seen and talk about this nesting of components, one that renders another, that have these children. In what order should we see this behavior? In what order do these methods run? So we'll start with constructor. Have to call super inside of it, and then console.log constructing grandchild. This is gonna be like full Jeopardy style. I have a lot of fun regardless. You'll have more fun if you participate, just saying. All right, so I've got 3 console logs. I've got constructing parent, constructing grandchild, and constructing child. In what order do we think we'll see these? Everyone agree?
But it turns out it's the other way.
What happened?
But it turns out it's the other way.
I don't know. We will see. I'm not giving you the answers. Come on. Parent, child, grandchild. You were correct. Which effectively makes sense. Because in order for the app to know, hey, I have to make a child component, I have to have started making the parent component. Otherwise, it has no idea that it has to render a child, so on and so forth. So now we'll move into the second one, render. And then I want to know both the constructor and the render console logs, what's our order? So I got rendering parent, rendering grandchild, and last one, rendering child. Where do my renders go? compared to the constructors? Correct. Do we like this order? Constructing, parent, child, grandchild, rendering, parent, child, grandchild? It's an option.
Is that how it actually works, or does it construct then render, and then construct then render?
So we'll leave this up here because I saw a couple of nows and I was like, is this it? Those might have just been like non-committals. I don't know. Using the wrong shortcuts. So you're suggesting this ordering.
It's the other way, like do 180.
But how can it render before it's constructed?
No, I mean like the grandchild gets constructed first.
Yeah, but
No. Oh, no.
So
no,
this
no.
order will still persist, but where do the renders go?
The-
Do they
the
go in
renders.
between? Do they go at the end? Do they go at the
Yeah,
end?
you'll suggest that you render the grandchild first, and then the child, and then the parent.
Ah, okay. So you're suggesting, or rather, being the spokesperson for Dan, you're suggesting this version here. All right, I'm not gonna make us vote on everyone because we're gonna do a few of these, but I think it's like fun to check your gut because this, akin with other libraries, is gonna be times when like you'll read the docs and sometimes they're not gonna be super clear, and then you just gotta play and see what your gut says. Okay. Oh, constructing parent, constructing child, constructing grandchild, rendering grandchild. That was this one. Too many notes. So just talk about like why that is. So very similar to we have to construct the parent to know the child has to be rendered or constructed at all. We actually have to start rendering the parent for the child to know that it has to be constructed at all. We have to get into that process. Okay, now we get into more of the fun stuff, because this is where we get to the first one we have not seen before. Component did mount. Look at the docs for good measure. It is invoked immediately after a component is mounted, inserted into the tree. So it actually has to be fully into our virtual DOM tree and ready to go onto the browser for this to run. It already did mount to our world. So, I should get like an easy way to start up a song while I do this. 'Cause I gotta do it for everyone. Did mount parent. Shorten U. All right, so parent did mount. No. Grandchild did mount. And salud, child did mount. Your sneezes are really cute though. All right, and this is gonna be the last one where before I take out some of these console logs and make them slightly less annoying. Did mount. All right, trial number 3. So this was the ordering that we had before. Where do these guys go in? In between the constructing and rendering. So like this. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to pull this down and make a copy so I can get other guesses as well. I'd like to have more than one for each of these rounds. Cool. Okay, so we got guess number 1. So we construct, did mount, and then render for each one, parent, child, grandchild, that order. Have any other theories? Shoot.
I think it's going to go with how you have it, and then did mount grandchild, did mount child, did mount parent.
Okay. Maybe. Any other final theories before we test? Shoot.
For good measure, it constructs renders and mounts. For each one. So
Okay. Like, boom, 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 boom. There. I appreciate the for good measure. All right, so.
I don't know if I agree with it, like actually agree with that.
But it's just a theory. So I'm gonna move this one up because it's pretty similar to our top guy. And just the ordering is different. So these two have parent, child, grandchild in groups. First one construct, did mount, rendering. Second one construct, rendering, did mount. And our third guess puts all the did mounts at the end and in the reverse order, grandchild, child, parent. Dun, 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 dead. Cool. So we do see that our first 6 persist that same order that we already saw, and we don't see any of the did mounts until the very end. Now, like, what is that about? So, looking at the parent, it cannot fully mount to the screen until it finishes rendering. It's got to be done. It can't finish rendering until child finishes rendering. And child can't finish rendering until grandchild is finished rendering. So we will see grandchild's first. It actually finishes mounting to the screen first, and then child, and then parent. And then we're done.
It's like a tree.
It's like a tree?
Yeah. When you're reversing a tree.
If that works for you, I'm gonna
No,
say
no,
yes.
no.
I don't understand the
Sound like a little
comparison.
It's a tree, the leaves grew first.
I'm not talking about that kind of tree. I'm actually talking about reversing
Like
that.
like a CS tree,
Yes.
where the root is at the top, and then still don't entirely get it, but it's okay. Okay, so things that I'm gonna comment out now, I'm just gonna comment out the constructors and the component did mount, and then we're gonna explore some more things. And later, I totally wanna understand that comparison, I just don't got it right now. Okay, so let's look back at our diagram. So now we've talked about the entirety of the birth process. After a component did mount, it's entirely on the screen, it's ready to live its life, it's out here being bad. Now, there are 3 things that will force it to update. This third one, force update, you can actually call on this, on the component itself. I found very few use cases where I have to use that, so we're not going to really delve into it. There are 2 other cases. One is our set state, which you guys already know triggers re-render. It makes it show up again, so we're familiar with that one. The other one is new props. So if the parent passes down something new to it, it'll also trigger the re-render of itself. How do I want to set some state? Where am I setting state? I always change this every time. I should think this through sooner. Do. Oh, we'll do inside of parent. Okay, so parent will have this on-click button. It's going to change the background color. It'll change something in state. Whoa. State equals background color. Red. I don't know. Change background color. Actually, no, we're just gonna do count. Count for simplicity's sake. We play with background colors later. Count, 0, update count, bam, 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 bam. This dot set state. We're just gonna add 1 to it because we can. And then on click, I will call this dot update count. So now parent has some state, and it is going to update its count, which will trigger its re-render. Just play around with this a little bit. So we've got our initial rendering parent, rendering child, rendering grandchild. I click this guy, and we see all 3 again. Which makes sense, because while the only one that's getting the updated state is parent, it renders everything else. So as it re-renders, everything else is going to re-render as well, all of its children. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Emphatic, yes, I like it. Okay. I do that sometimes and I hate myself for it. I just closed out. Tragic. Please all be open. Awesome. Great. Okay, what I wanted to do was look back at these guys. So now, after that re-render happens, we hit this component did update method. Mind you, did update. So something updated, already changed, already back on the screen. Now what do we do with this? We're gonna look at its docs right quick. So component update immediately after updating occurs. You named it well. We don't need to know that. It is not called for the initial render. That is component did mount, which is only called once. This is called anytime new props happen, force update happens, or set state happens. It also gets a couple of arguments. Pre-props, pre-state, and snapshot. I've used snapshot very sparingly, so we'll just focus on pre-props and pre-state. Now, Why do we care and when would we use this? I really wish they would do more logical ordering for this. So component did update gets prev props and prev state.
So do we have to bring those in?
If you do not need them, no. However, if you're using component did update, you are likely looking at something here. So
Okay.
I want to give you an example of like when you would use this. So say we were making a Slack application and I have my channels. I'm going to do this as if I'm facing the way you guys are facing. I have my channels on the left side and I have my messages on the right side. This is my like message list. When I first mount that, I already have a given channel ID. And that's how it knows what messages to go grab over here. Say I click on another channel, my message list component has never left the screen. But it likely got a new channel ID prop. New information about which channel I'm looking at, what messages to go grab from the back end. In this one, in component update, I can check, hey, if this .props.channel ID is not equal to prev.props.channel ID, go grab some new messages. Componented update overarchingly is used to check if some specific change has happened between your current props and your previous props, or your current state and your previous state. And then to allow you to do some behavior off of that. So for instance, in that Slack example, to subscribe to a different channel so you can get those live updates. That's things that we would do in here. That being said though, you have to be really careful with this guy. Because say I automatically this.set state, we have count here. So I'll say every time component did update, I want to add one to my count. We're just going to watch this do what it does. Error, maximum update depth exceeded. This can happen when a component repeatedly calls set state inside component will update or did update. What's happening is, I click the button, I call set state with that. It updates my count, which re-renders his component did update, which also calls set state, which re-renders component did update, also calls set state. And now I'm in this infinite loop. So inside of component did update, big warning. Big warning. Be careful setting state here. Bless you. Only inside of conditionals. You need an exit where you are not setting state, otherwise you end up in this infinite loop, which is no good. Salud.
I've seen that error other times. I've
What
seen
have
that
you
exact
already
error,
seen?
but obviously didn't know that component update existed.
Oh.
Would that happen if you called set? I've seen it by putting set state in like the wrong place, I think.
Did you put it in the render?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Does that happen in render too?
Yeah. You could also,
That's what it was.
salud. You can also definitely get that from
Okay.
putting it inside the render, depending on what you're doing there. Chip.
My question was more so like, do I need to actually specify that in like the parameters of that function, or is it implied like props was in certain cases in classes? Or
Reframe question. Do I have to put these two is what you're asking about?
yeah, do you have to actually write that out, or can you just like write prep props within that function?
No, you actually have to write it out. So
Okay.
all of these, you do have to explicitly pass them in, and technically you could call this something else, but it is standard to call them. Yep. Use a nomenclature from the documentation. They name it that way for a reason. This also reminds me of one thing though that I skipped over. Sorry, friends. So use case of component did update is doing those checks. Let me get rid of this. Is doing those checks, and then if you need to set state, force update, any of that jazz, this is where you would do it based on some change. The use case for component did mount is anything that you want to do after the component's actually on the screen. It's already loaded. So that includes things like what to do here, and anything that you need to do one time. So right when it's on the screen and just the one time. So we might want to fetch some data. This is where we'd want to do that. If we need to set any timeouts, that probably also goes here. Or if we need to subscribe to some channel for real-time updates. All of that you would do once a component is on the screen. Shoot.
I touched the data, you know, like that API or your own.
Literally, like, we'll do this in a little bit. Fetch my API dot then res.json dot then data, set some state stuff. This is a place that you would do that. Okie doke. Am I gonna make us do the did update? I might not. Okay, so that is the entirety of its living its life. It just goes through the cycle, and we have to make sure that it doesn't end up in some tragic infinite loop of constantly changing itself and never being content with its life. Sorry, sometimes I take this like person metaphor way too far. All right. Very last thing is unmounting. Component will unmount. So I gotta do a little bit of changing some stuff up. So I'm gonna say show children is true, and on click, instead of making count, I'm gonna say show children is not this dot state dot show children. Toggle show, toggle show. All right, so what we're gonna do instead with state here is have a conditional rendering for the child. This.state.show children, double and child. So when I toggle this, this is going to unmount child off of the screen. It will no longer render it, and it will take it off the screen. Parent will stay on the screen the whole time. So the two guys that need this little bit of addition are component will unmount, pulling this, will unmount. Grandchild and child will need this behavior. Because these are the two components that once parent stops rendering child, child's not gonna be on the screen anymore, nor will grandchild. There's only two of them. I'm not gonna make us guess because there's a 50-50 shot. That's kind of silly. Though I am also a silly person, so it would not be unfamiliar for me to do that. So we've got child, and we've got grandchild. And we've got one of two orders. Easy peasy. We'll either see will unmount child, then grandchild, or the reverse. And now we're gonna play with it. See, shoot before I do it.
I'll just watch.
Oh. You sure?
I like to hypothesize that if you remove the child, the grandchild's automatically going to get deleted.
Yes. My question is mostly related to this being will unmount. What tries to unmount first? The child or the thing that it renders? It's child.
It could be the child.
Let's see. Will unmount child and then will unmount grandchild. Because it's just what?
Oh, because it's just like, it's saying it will do it, so like it'll just like sort of, what's the word, optimistically render that and then run the rest of the code. Well, I don't want to say optimistically because that might be.
Yeah, let's be careful with our semantics and our nomenclature. But this is why I'm always like, these matter. The like will and everything matter. Particularly when you get to code bases that have not been using the most updated lifecycle methods and like only the ones that they're encouraging you to use now, you're gonna see will update, did, I think there actually is, no, there's not a did unmount, it's the only one there can't be a did for. Will update exists? We're gonna look at that thing. There were so many of them that I was like, I don't know what these are. Oh yeah, get derived state from props is a whole thing. And actually, let's go to 16.3. I feel like there's even more. Oh wait, no, they triggered different things. Should component update I was so confused about for so long. But you will totally see them from the code bases that you work on. So pay attention to the nomenclature. So here's the thing, is that will unmount runs before the component is actually off of the screen. It's your chance to clean up, is effectively what this is. The component's not gone yet, so anything you've done related to the component, like set timeout or subscribing to some channel, you want to remove that subscription, you want to close that off, and you want to stop that timeout before the component comes off of the screen, because otherwise you have memory leaks. That's no good. Component will unmount, there we go, gives you the chance to clean up. Remove subscriptions or set timeouts here. So no memory leaks. So let's do one more thing.
What's a memory loop?
What were you saying? Yeah, we can like make this a combo. I know it's like a lecture, but we can also just like.
Has that ever happened to you? Like let's say you leave a certain link on the computer for like over a day or something like that, you come back and you try to press on any of the links and it just doesn't work.
What? No.
No?
I don't think so. I don't have a good short answer definition of memory leak. Do you have a good short answer definition of memory leak? We're gonna Google it.
Rather, I felt perhaps the way that it was set up was to stop functioning to prevent the memory leak. Because if it's a memory leak, your whole system can crash.
I mean, like potentially eventually, but even just like not closing something and having that port open, like the number of times that I have thought that I correctly closed a server and then haven't, and then go to start a server on the same port, and it's like, wah, wah. It's in use. Like even that is technically a memory leak. Google says, type of resource leak that occurs when a computer program incorrectly manages memory allocations in such a way that memory which is no longer needed is not released. TLDR. Even though our computers are like crazy awesome now, and have a ton of memory and a ton of RAM and all of that compared to, I don't know, the 80s and 90s, it's still not infinite. So if you don't clear things that you're no longer using, you can run out of space. Fun fact, I finally ran out of space in Google Drive. It is possible. What were you gonna say?
Worse with RAM too, because like Chrome is horrible.
Mm.
It's just horrible. Like we need
It's
all the
awful.
RAM we can get just to run Chrome these days.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I really want to go back to people. Like, what are we doing, friends? Because you're supposed to be awesome at this. Apparently not. Wow, shady. Okay, there's one more thing about will unmount rather that I wanted to show you guys. So for good measure, debugger in child. Boom, boom. The reason I threw the debugger in here is just to make the point. They're still on the screen. It happens before they actually remove. It is your final chance to clean up things. Anything that's related to that you need to be like, actually, remove that from memory, actually, stop paying attention to that port, actually, yada yada, clear up, right there. And those are the 3 that you need to know. And now we play. Okay. So I have 2